So this is just an overview of it for those of you who aren't, who haven't been to campus or aren't familiar with CSUN. We have okay, we go. So we got, sustainability is a really broad, obviously it intersects everything. And I'm going to be talking about food and urban farming today, but all the things that Tim had just mentioned and all the things I'm going to talk about today relating to urban farming intersects all of these themes here, including, of course, education, food and security, climate and energy, zero waste, and all our future projects and collaborations. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about a few of those and then jump into the freight farm and our urban farming initiatives. So a little bit about just thinking beyond, even after you graduate COC and when you come to CSUN, perhaps after CSUN, you get your bachelor's. We have a master's degree in sustainability. We also have a minor in sustainability as well. So if you do come, you could get that minor. It's pretty, it works really well with whatever your degree is in, whether it be in STEM fields or in any other field. And so we are trying to really build that into the curriculum, and particularly through experiential learning and community-based activities and practices. So these are just some examples. One of the examples here is our seed saving initiative. So, we have a huge campus. It's not unlike some of the things you're doing and some of the things you've heard today, where we have 5,000 plus trees. We've got a tree atlas. We've got a half-acre food garden, which I'll tell you about, and we also have 5 acres of citrus trees, which are part of the campus, as you all know. The valley itself was one massive orchard in many ways, right? And our campus has a remnant orchard, about 300 or 400 citrus trees that existed when CSUN became CSUN. So we have that history right there on campus, and so we're trying to incorporate that into this urban farming initiatives and practices. So one of the things we're doing, we have this is all student-led stuff. So we have our a seed saving initiative where we have not unlike, I know you have a seed library as well on campus. So we're actually kind of replicating or trying to, we were inspired by what you're doing at COC and trying to do the same thing, where we can go and glean all these thousands of species of seeds, a lot of them fruit producing seeds, and housing them on campus at the Sustainability Center, and creating a system of exchange, knowledge, ideas, and food around seeds and seed saving. So kind of basically finding things hidden in plain sight. And that's what I think urban farming is ultimately about. It's food is every day, and therefore farming is every day. And so the trick is to how do we get cities to become food producers rather than relying on the areas outside the city, right? So most of humanity lives in cities now. So now we have to rethink not only a relationship with the city, but also a relationship with food around that. So that's really what we're interested in. So a couple of things that are just as I want you to kind of keep aware of, even though I'm talking about urban farming today. We also have a sustainable fashion ambassador program, and I particularly see this as intersecting with not necessarily urban farming in interesting ways. So, of course, much of what we wear, just like food, clothes is every day, right? And so thinking about fashion and with the sustainability lens actually affords it gets really interesting and makes you kind of rethink your day-to-day practices, just like when you're thinking about what you're eating and where it comes from, how it's grown, et cetera. Same thing for clothes. So we've been working with this semester in particular, organic cotton producers, some of the pioneers in organic cotton production. And we're thinking about using our urban farming spaces, including the hydroponic farm that Tim mentioned, to grow cotton, to grow flax, to grow these materials sustainably, and actually teach about clothing in that way, where the source comes from. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about. I won't mention these other things, but just to know that there are lots of programs, lots of faculty and engagement and involvement, and we're actually in the middle of starting our new sustainability plan. We just finished our last 10-year one, and now we're doing a new one. So food security, urban farming is at the core of this these next 10 years on campus. So thinking about urban farming, we start with the community. As I mentioned, you can't engage in these initiatives, especially if you're thinking about careers in urban farming. A lot of it has to be, in a place like Los Angeles, entrepreneurial. Maybe some of you want to start an urban farming business, or you're going to work for food justice organization, or you're going to be involved in food policy, on food systems. As LA counties reimagines all of this. Well, we have to really know about the community, what the community's needs are, and how they, how they think about food. What's their relationship with food? Where do they get food? And a lot of the issues in LA County, it's around access to food insecurity. So that's where we start. When we talk about urban farming, we're talking about food insecurity, and therefore we're talking about the community. So one of the projects we're really excited about around urban farming, and we're in our third year now of this grant we got from the USDA as a sub-awardee, and we're training our students to become farmers, become urban farmers in particular. So we have we work with 2 other organizations up and down the state, and we're training them in agroecology. So you heard a little bit about biodiversity practices and even aquaculture practices. That's something we're also interested in. And we're trying to train the students from the community who can go back out into the community and grow food, get involved in these food insecurity or food security efforts, and really we'll focus on communities of color, communities of need, and this is like COC. That's where many of our students come from. So we're really interested in not only kind of doing a large overview of these, urban farming and kind of sustainable farming principles at a theoretical level, but really giving the hands-on training and doing it with the community as well. And so last but not least, or not last but not least, but one of the things that we're really focused on right now is our hydroponic farm, which we were able to give a COC a tour of. I forgot when that was. That was earlier in the semester. Seems so long ago, Tim. Wow. So this is called Freight Farm. You can see it's like basically there's the F there behind our students here. And that is a hydroponic farm. It's the size of a shipping container. It's about 10 by 50. We got this in May, so May 2022. And this was through federal funding for student needs. It's called the Higher Ed Relief Fund, and I'm sure maybe COC, I'm sure we're able to access some of this funding. It's from COVID related funds that were available. And so we got this grant basically to purchase this piece of equipment, and all the food from this equipment goes to our students. So it's it goes to our food pantry, and you can see our student there in the middle with the food CSUN pop-up pantry. We've been working with a pantry on campus for over a decade. It's incredibly successful. We've produced tons, literally hundreds of tons of food over the past 12, 13, 14 years. And now with this freight farm, as I'll show you, just to give you a sense of there's Mabel Chirigato. She's our freight farmer, and she's holding a head of lettuce there. So you could see these walls basically, like it's vertical farming. So on the right, that's all lettuce that was grown. That took about 7 weeks from the seed that we put in a little plug to putting them in the wall here. As you can see right there, you can see the roots where she's holding it. That's plugged into the wall here on this essentially a vertical grid. And so that took about 7 weeks. In every month. So now we're in our more or less our fourth month operational. We really started to get it going in June. We've already produced close to a ton of food, just utilizing a quarter of this space. So remember, just to go back to that, I don't know if I can go back to, inside here, right? It's very unassuming too. It's just kind of hidden. There you can grow up to, when we're at full capacity, we can grow 4,000 head of lettuce. So 4,000 of these, in 1 month. So it's about an acre and a half of production space. So it's the size of a farm. So you can imagine an acre and a half is pretty, you could actually get a lot. There's lots of urban farms that are less than that. So we've got an acre and a half in this little space here. You could stack them on top of each other. So they're built for stacking. They're built for maximal efficiency and kind of minimal use of space. So in a place like LA, where real estate is extremely expensive, communities there's lots of barriers to that. This is an amazing piece of equipment that's a food security machine, right? And it's, in terms of its equipment itself, we, for those of you who, for COC students who might want to come to campus, we have a whole suite of programming around this. So we're going to train students in how do you run a urban, a hydroponic farm. So all this is hooked up to a grid on the cloud. So there's all kinds of research capabilities. We're collaborating with all of our different STEM departments. So engineering, nutrition, of course, biology. So we're collaborating with all different faculty who are really, really excited about this piece of equipment. And we will ultimately want to actually do a DIY and build our own and basically build our own grid. So right now we're relying on the proprietary technology of this company, which is great, but we have all these resources on campus. And so we want to kind of do it ourselves eventually. And then once this is we really have a sense of how this works. So this is just really exciting. And this is one little, literally one little piece of the puzzle here, but all this food, again, 4,000 head of lettuce, we can grow, eventually our next one we're going to get is going to be plugged right into our dining system. So the idea is to have a closed loop food system. Tim mentioned our zero waste, a little bit about the composting and zero waste. We're already at zero. We're getting close to a zero green waste system. So all of our green waste, all the the grass clippings, trees, et cetera, all stay on campus. And now, eventually we want to scale it up to our food system as well. And eventually get a few of these freight farms. You can pretty much grow anything in there. So we also have a little nursery in there. So we're growing our coffee. This is which I'll tell you about in a second. So it's not just greens. We've grown tomatoes in there. We're growing all kinds of herbs. Really, what the needs of the community are. Our food insecure community. So we're getting we could literally plan 8 weeks in advance. Oh, we know that this time of the year students are really interested in using X, Y, or Z, and then we could actually plant that, in advance, just like you do on a farm. Except here, you don't have to worry about soil. You don't have to worry about pests. There's other kinds of challenges, but those are the things that are eliminated from that. And in terms of water use, it uses only 5 gallons, roughly 5 to 6 gallons of water per day. So imagine 4,000 head of lettuce per month with roughly maybe close to 200 gallons of water in 1 month. That's less than a shower, that we take, So the water is to me, that's the most amazing part. It's built for climate change. It's built for our drought landscape that we're in now. And then right now it's hooked up to the campus grid, which so indirectly we have a certain percentage we're trying to get to 100% solar eventually. We're not there yet, but so it uses about $1,200. We have it metered $1,200 a month to keep it charged and going. But you can imagine our plan is to hook it to solar. So even $1,200 a month is not a huge amount. You think the output that you get from that and the minimal water. So as a community resource, it's like maybe some of you who are listening right now, a student, your community could actually have one of these. You plug it in a parking lot somewhere, right at a community center or at a church, a mosque, a temple, etc. You plug it in, or maybe just hook it up to solar. 5 gallons of water a day. You can literally glean that from, gray water or wherever. And now you've got food for the community, right? Or you got an urban farming entrepreneurial, a company, et cetera. And you're part of the solution that's which LA needs. So the other thing we're doing, I know I'm probably over time here, but just to kind of end on this, we have this freight farm, we have this hydroponic farm, but of course, Soil, we've learned to talk a little bit about soil and the importance of regenerating soil and biodiversity, and that is one of our other core priorities. And again, soil, if you think of soil as a manifestation of the local culture, the local community, the local resources, that's how we think about soil on campus. And so in our half-acre, we've got two main sites that we operate, in particular. I mentioned some of the landscaping, the 5 acres of citrus, et cetera. But we've got a quarter acre of that 5-acre garden, or orchard rather. We've been approved rather to incorporate and create a urban farming polyculture biodiversity space. So taking that history, that orchard, which is very, it's industrial in terms of the monoculture. It's all citrus, it's all in the rows, it's also something you would see when you imagine a farm, a stereotypical orchard. That's what you see. And we're going to convert it into the future. And the future is all of you, right? The future is high density planting, intercropping, sustainable, incorporating natives, incorporating pollinators, incorporating carbon sequestering plants. So we're going to do this in the space and make it a community interface. So you get to, it's not closed off, it's not fenced off, it's a manifestation of the seaside, of the valley, of this part of the valley. And so one of the things we're really excited about in terms of entrepreneurial skills and urban farming is coffee. And so we're planting high value coffee, which is something that many California farmers are planting these days. And so we're teaching these skills to students. It's like a 3 to 5 year investment before you get the cherries from the coffee. But so our goal is to make it an urban farming or urban coffee research space. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, it's very interdisciplinary. It's the science, it's soil science, it's the carbon sequestering, it's the botany, it's the marketing. All these things are part of this project. So we're planting 100. We've got 25 in the ground now. This is one of them. Coffee is a tree, and so we're working with the citrus now to use these biodiverse, sustainable methods of production as a way for students to think and re-engage food and urban farming. And so many of us drink coffee every day. It's one of the most widely consumed and traded, globally traded commodities in the world. So this is why we think it's relevant. So I'll stop there, but that's just a little bit of what we do at CSUN.